AWS Account Description Centralized Management Unit for AWS Resources. It acts as the primary account for accessing and managing all AWS services, resources, and billing. Prerequisites: AWS account credentials. You need a valid AWS account with an access key ID and secret access key to interact with AWS services. Basic understanding of AWS concepts. Familiarity with fundamental AWS concepts like regions, services, and resource types is recommended. Use cases: deploying and managing AWS resources. Create, manage, and configure various AWS services like EC2 instances, S3 buckets, Lambda functions, and more within the context of your AWS account. Centralized billing and cost management. Track and manage AWS expenses, set up budgets, and analyze spending patterns across your account. Controlling access to AWS services. Define user permissions and roles to control access to specific AWS services and resources, ensuring secure and controlled access within your organization. Step-by-step implementation of general use cases. Create an AWS account. Sign up for an AWS account using the AWS website, providing necessary information and selecting the desired account type. Configure security settings. Enable multi-factor authentication, MFA, for the root account and implement security best practices like access control lists, ACLs, security groups, and policies. Set up billing and payment methods. Configure payment methods for your AWS account and set up cost alerts to manage spending. Create users and roles. Establish user identities and define permissions using users and roles to control access to AWS resources. Deploy AWS resources. Launch and configure AWS services such as EC2 instances, S3 buckets, databases, and other resources. Monitor and manage resources. Use monitoring tools like CloudWatch and CloudTrail to track resource health, performance, and security. Events, challenges and fixes. Access key and secret key management. Rotate access keys regularly. Regularly change access keys to mitigate security risks associated with compromised keys. Use roles for service accounts. Leverage roles to provide temporary, limited access to services and applications, reducing the need for long-term credentials. Store credentials securely. Store access keys and secret keys securely using tools like AWS Secrets Manager or parameter stores. Account security and compliance. Enable MFA for root account. Implement MFA for the root account to add an extra layer of security to your account. Implement security best practices. Enforce strong password policies. Regularly patch systems and implement security controls like VPCs, security groups, and policies. Regularly audit account activity. Monitor and review account activity logs to detect any suspicious behavior. Use security tools like GuardDuty and CloudTrail. Utilize AWS security tools to monitor for threats and track account activity. Cost optimization and management. Use AWS Cost Explorer. Analyze and track your AWS costs with detailed reports and insights. Implement cost-saving strategies. Utilize reserved instances, spot instances, and other cost optimization strategies to reduce expenses. Monitor and optimize resource usage. Identify unused or underutilized resources and adjust resource configurations to optimize cost. Set up budget alerts. Define budget thresholds and receive alerts When spending approaches or exceeds defined limits. Account suspension or termination. Contact AWS support. Reach out to AWS support for assistance with account suspension or termination issues. Review account activity logs. Examine account activity logs to understand the reason for suspension or termination. Check for outstanding payments. Ensure all outstanding payments are resolved to prevent account suspension or termination. Follow AWS guidelines for account recovery. Adhere to AWS guidelines for account recovery to attempt to reinstate your suspended or terminated account. Troubleshooting account issues. Review AWS documentation. Consult AWS documentation for detailed information and troubleshooting guides. Use AWS support forums. Seek help from the AWS support community for assistance with specific account problems. Contact AWS support. Reach out to AWS support for technical assistance with account-related issues. Check for service disruptions. Verify if any AWS service disruptions are impacting your account. Verify account settings and configurations. Ensure that your account settings and configurations are correct and up to date.